You're listening to the Loving Your Own Soul podcast, and I'm your host, Britt Olson. Guided by my own intuition, my intention is to deliver genuine conversations centered around health and wellness, spirituality, self-expression, and culture. In this space, I will provide you with real-life stories, theories, and inspiring perspectives to help you uncover and tap into your own true potential. I'm so grateful you've chosen to tune in with me on this mindful exploration to living a more fluid life through a deeper connection to the soul. Now let's dive into today's journey. I'm Britt Olson, your podcast host and holistic wellness coach, here for the purpose of guiding you to tap into your own true potential. And I am just so grateful to have you tuning in here today. Honestly, I am overjoyed every time somebody listens to this podcast. So thank you so much for being here today. And today's conversation is truly so beautiful. I am so excited to bring on this special soul. But first, I wanted to draw an oracle card for all of you in order to leave you with a message and some hidden inspiration. So today, I'm going to be selecting from Rebecca Campbell's Work Your Light deck. And this deck is truly so beautiful. It's wonderful. I love every deck, but they all are just so unique in their own way. But the creator of this deck, Rebecca Campbell herself, is another empowering female, truly just radiating in her power. And she is someone I'm manifesting to come onto the podcast later this year as well, because I think it would be so fun to talk about her story. So the card I drew today, and again, I will also post a photo of this on my Instagram so you can all see it, but it is Birthing a New Age, Birthing Creations, Dreaming a New World into Being. And this card could honestly not be more on point. So I love that that's the one that came out, but I will now read you the message from the Oracle deck. Birthing a New Age. Often our path is exactly the one that we don't feel prepared to walk. Walk it anyway. Often what is rising feels far bigger than we could possibly hold. Be a container for it anyway. Often our creations seem to have a wild, uncontrollable consciousness of their own. Birth them anyway. Often what is ours to do is the very thing that most intimidates us. Be courageous and do it anyway. We are birthing a new age. Right now, we are in a transition period between ages, in the process of allowing the old cycle to fall away and the new one to rise. Like driving in the fog and trusting the road will appear ahead, we need to release old identities and ways that no longer serve us, using our intuition as a compass. You are part of a group of souls who have been incarnating at significant periods of history, preparing for this exact time. Dreaming a new world into being. Sisters, daughter of Isis, Essenes, priestesses, witches, mystics, healers, seers, artists, midwives, visionaries, guardians of the earth, and storytellers from times past. It is time to give permission and space for what is beckoning within to be born. We are dreaming a new world into being. Wow. I mean, come on, right? That was such a good card. I hope that definitely resonates with all of you. Do let me know. I would love to hear. Like I said, I will post a photo of it on my Instagram as well. So today, like I said, I'm just so excited for this conversation that I had with Ariel Upton, who is the CEO and co-founder of Today I Did It Right. Ariel has such a welcoming energy and just impact with the words she speaks. I have no doubt that y'all are going to feel so uplifted and inspired as a result of this episode. It's truly so special. We touch on so many topics that go between areas some of us may be struggling with, want to lean into, or just simply a different viewpoint on defining what a right life looks like to you. Truly something for everyone here today. And I have actually been working with Ariel's journal of Today I Did It Right with the Today I Did It Right approach this year. And it has been incredible, truly transformational, just really trying to live life in a way that is right to me. And with that, I'd also like to point out the fact that sometimes life isn't perfect, nor is it meant to be. And during our conversation, some yard work on my end actually got started. A weird situation, honestly, that I've been kind of silently battling back and forth with all year. But today you get to hear a little bit of that. So honestly, just a glimpse into real life. And happy March as well, everyone. As we have just entered into March, I'm starting off a new giveaway for this month. So last month in February, I gave away one of my lifestyle tune-ups and actually decided to do a different giveaway this month as we get closer to celebrating our first official 12 months of the podcast, which is crazy how quickly time goes. So you have one giveaway this month and then a final giveaway for the month of April. So if you don't win this month, you can also re-enter again in April. But for March, I will be giving away one of my moon cycle oracle readings. And this reading goes into just guidance as to where your intentions may want to be focused in this next cycle, where you'll see your most growth, what's coming into fruition, what you're letting go of, and maybe an area that you may want to lean into as well. These readings are so insightful. Those who have had them has just had such great insight and impact from them. Truly so beautiful. But to enter for a chance to win March's Moon Cycle Oracle reading, all you have to do is subscribe, rate and review the podcast, take a screenshot for proof that you entered, and then DM it to me on Instagram at lovingyourownsoul, or send me an email with your proof to lovingyourownsoul@gmail.com. And if you share the podcast or your favorite episode on Facebook or Instagram, do be sure to tag me or at least take a screenshot and send it to me again so that you can get an extra entry into the giveaway. And now, if you've previously entered a giveaway of mine, you do have to re-enter in the month of March to be considered. But honestly, I'm kind of doing this so we can get more shout out and appreciation for our guests. So if you've already entered, leave a review, shout out one of our guests, tell us, what you liked most about the episode, what you learned, your favorite part of the conversation, etc. Your review doesn't have to be about the overall podcast, although it is always appreciated, but definitely shout out some of our guests and give them some love too. The winner for the giveaway will be drawn and announced on April 1st, and then the giveaway will restart for the month of April. This is simply my way of thanking you for all of your support and love of the podcast in this last almost a year, but to also, like I said, further support our wonderful guests as well, because it's not easy putting yourself out there. So if you're reviewing the podcast, be sure to shout out our guests, name your favorite episode or piece of their story that helped you the most. And I really know firsthand how much it means when you just learn that your own story, experience, or vulnerable moment made a positive impact on someone else's life. And speaking of positive impacts, let's go ahead and jump into today's wonderful conversation with Ariel Upton. Well, Ariel, welcome to Loving Your Own Soul podcast. I'm so excited to have you on here and officially introduce the listeners to you and your wonderful story.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yes, this is going to be so fun. And you are actually joining us from Sweden, which is such an incredible part of the world. How is life right now in starting off the new year over there?
Yes. So I left your home state, which is also, well, not your home state, my home state where you live. And so originally from Florida, and I've been living in Sweden the last 2.5 years, and which has just been such an amazing experience. Was absolutely my biggest life dream was to live abroad, like top of the list was to live abroad. So feels incredible to be able to have done that and experience everything. Definitely a huge transition. Moved here from Chicago, from one of the biggest cities in the United States to a town of about 100,000 people just outside the Swedish countryside. So definitely a lot of change, a lot of different experiences. And obviously wasn't planning on moving across the world before a pandemic. So definitely had to learn some new lessons there when everyone you love isn't accessible through an 8-hour plane ride. And, a lot of the ideas I had for what my life would look like, running around to European countries on the weekends and going on little quick trips and taking advantage of, the $40 flights that everyone talks about in Europe. So it has been different, but I do realize that we would have always been leaving Sweden. If we would have been here, like this would have been the home base, and then we would have been traveling a lot, and we've been able to experience it a lot more and really learn a lot of those lessons about sitting still. And probably the greatest lesson of this entire last year for myself is, what was I keeping myself so busy with? What was I chasing all the time? So we've been here, I've been in Sweden a lot, gotten to really nurture my close friendships here, which has been beautiful, and just really experience living here instead of having an apartment here and traveling all the time. So it's right now we're having an amazing winter, which we have not had, which is so snowy and calm and beautiful, and, seeing little kids sledding every day. And it feels very calm here.
Love that. And the stillness. That's so beautiful. I know for me, I realized this year in sitting in the stillness, I used to travel all the time for fun, for work. It's just always jumping on airplanes is something that I've always done and love dearly. But I realized this year that a location does not define my happiness, and that my happiness is really within and with myself. And it was such just a beautiful kind of uncovering and perspective shift of, like you said, what was I chasing? What was I kind of going after? And as much as I love all of that and can't wait to get back to it in many ways, at the same time, it was like, wow, happiness is right here with myself. It's not the location. So.
Yeah, I've been going through this, which we can talk about in more detail, this big select, refine, eliminate process the last 2 months. And one of the things I've been doing is really going through photos, right? So I was getting the daily alert of, your iPhone has no storage available. I have 35,000 photos on here. And I logged into the cloud for the first time. It's like, what's going on in here? And I spent, I don't know, I probably spent 40 or 80 hours at this point, deleting and organizing and building actual books I'm going to print. But I was looking at this period of time from 2016. It was like July to November. And just looking at the photos, I'm exhausted. I'm like, what was I doing? It's like traveling for work this weekend, and then throwing a surprise party for my brother. And then I'm traveling for my birthday, and then another work trip. And it's just, I can't even imagine. So some pieces of it, I can't wait, but wow, too full.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I relate so much. It's so funny. 2016, immediately, like so many memories come up for that specific year. I love the alignment between all of us.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Well, select, refine, eliminate, I know, is one of the 16 rights of Today I Did It Right, the Titter approach. You are the CEO and co-founder. For anyone who is, whether new here to your story, to Titter, I would love to just kind of introduce the listeners to your background and what brought you to launch Today I Did It Right.
Yeah, I'd love to share that story. It's my favorite story about how this brand came to be, how this company came to be, how this approach came to be. So I built this company. There's a co in front of my founder name. I built this company with a woman named Betsy Tomlinson, who is my life mentor, my life guru, and a woman I met when I was 18 years old. She was 58, so she's 40 years older than I am, when I moved into my college dorm. So I moved from Florida to Chicago, and I was the first person from my high school to go to my college. And I had some distant relatives in the city, but I didn't know them very well. And when my mom and my aunt took me up to move into school, they were like, we have to introduce you to Betsy, who's our old friend from decades before. So in case, you need to call someone if you're in prison or in the hospital, or, just an adult in the room, that you have someone. And my mom and my aunt had known Betsy at that point for 30 years, or yeah, 30 years. My Aunt Betsy, they were waitresses together in their early 20s at a Holiday Inn in Champaign-Urbana. And they stayed close friends their entire life. And when I first met Betsy, I was 18, thought I knew everything, didn't know anything. And I just met this woman and I just was struck by her immediately. She just was so confident. She was amazing. You just looked at her, she was 5'2". I'm 5'9", so like full hand, like head over her. And she just was so powerful, just this smile and this look about her and this air about her. And I was like, wow, if I want to be anything, I want to be that. I think a lot of women in their 20s and 30s and even 40s, they look at that older woman across the room, right? And you go, how do I be that? Yep. And I'm sure everyone listening now, you've seen her on the bus, right? You've seen her in the grocery store. You've seen her in the park. You might know her, like she might be your grandmother. She might be your mother. And I have incredible, strong women in my family. But there was just something about Betsy. I was just drawn to her immediately. And she really stayed with me. Those first few years I was in Chicago, I would see her whenever my family came to visit. And when I was graduating college, she was helping me because she built her own very successful executive search firm, really unheard of. I don't know a lot of women in the 70s and 80s who are building their own businesses that would last a career that long. Solo entrepreneurs that we all are today. And she was helping me with my resume, and we just started going out for lunch. So I was, just about to graduate college, just after college, and we just built this beautiful friendship. And that's what built this whole company, was just this completely uncommon. We didn't even know what to call ourselves. So we ended up calling each other OSPs, other special people, because, you're not related. You're not like friends. I mean, you are friends, but it's just different. So we realized that we were OSPs, and it was fascinating that, as you said, that we're all connected. I was in this major period of transition, leaving college, going into the real world, which I hate that phrase because every day of our life is our real life. This is the only one we get, but quote unquote. And she was retiring. So she was leaving the workforce. And so even though we were two totally different women at different life stages, we were both going through these huge periods of transition. And both of us were wondering, how do we do this? Like, how do we do this right for us? And she asked me, she's like, Ariel, what do you want? And at the time, I was really excited about the job I was, going after, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in Chicago. I wasn't sure if the relationship I was in was right for me. It was the first time I wasn't really confident in what that next path looked like, because it's, you are stepping off the linear life path at that point. Like, I knew I was a great student, like in high school. I knew I was going to college. I had a job since I was 12. Like, I knew all those things, but I was like, oh, wow, now I'm really going to get to decide what's for me. And so she asked me, what do I want? Like, that was the question she asked. And I said that there's this song lyric I had written a few years before. So I'm a big writer. I love to sing. And the lyric is, when asked what I want to do with my life, I want to go to bed at the end of the day saying, today I did it right. And that started us off. I will never forget the table we were sitting at. I will never forget the lunch. I will never forget the conversation. And we both just set out on a quest of, okay, well, if we want to go to bed saying, today I did it right, how do we do that? What does that look like? So that's what started it. It was just this beautiful conversation, this question from her, such a simple one. What do you want? And I was honest. I gave my honest answer, and it just resonated with her too. So that's how we started it. And we just said, okay, let's figure out, how do we do it right? And we spent 8 years, 8 years, starting, stopping. Just really, I always tell people we were like the scientists of our own life. We just observed what were we actually doing? And then we'd come together and we'd have these beautiful long lunches. I would sit by the fire. We'd sit by the fire in her apartment. We'd sit on the porch in the summer. We'd go to the restaurants in Chicago, and we'd just sit for hours at the table, and we'd have our markers and our journals, like to the point that strangers would walk up to us. I will never forget this one day. We were sitting outside at Carmine's in Chicago, which is like this beautiful patio. And this guy just comes up and he goes, "You girls are having too much fun." And that's like the energy Betsy and I had together. It just, I mean, she's my soulmate for sure. Like that's 100%. And then we created the Today I Did It Right approach based on all of those observations of us actually living our lives, not aspirationally, not what we dreamed of, but how did we actually spend our time? And what did a right day look like versus a wrong day? We were professional noticers, and that's how we built the business. And we realized in this time, that energy that I kind of talked about, people kept coming to us because they knew what we were doing, but we didn't even know what we were building yet. Like we had Today I Did It Right, but we didn't know what it was. And people were like, "I want to do that." And I was actually on the bus commuting to my job in Chicago. And I was like, "It's a journal. Like we have to give people the tool that we use to create this for ourselves. It's not a book, right? It's not a coffee table book where people read stories about Betsy and my right days, because that doesn't help them, right? Maybe one day that's a good story. But it was this aha moment of, oh no, we got to give people the tools to notice for themselves. And so that's how we created it. And it became a journal. And as you said, it has 16 rights, and it's super simple. How every single day, how do you look at your life and find one right thing? Because the more we notice it and the more we practice it, the more we can create it. That's how we started. And that was what we built at first, was just the journal and that 16-step approach.
So incredible. So many things I want to talk about there. First of all, what came to mind too is as you were telling the story, which I get full body chills when you talk about with that song lyric, it's so cool. What is for us is truly always for us. But just those soul families and soul connections and the power of meeting someone. And you talk about how can you live a life that's right for you? How can I live a life that's right for me and for Betsy? And what I think is so cool about that is for the two of you, if you look at your friendship, sure, on paper, someone might say, well, how can you be that close and develop friendships with somebody who's that much older than you or that much younger than you? But for you, that is what's right. And that is what is right in your life. And I just love that connection there, because I truly believe that age is just a number on both levels. So yeah, I love that. But with really just kind of the journey, what I think is so cool that you mentioned is how it took 8 years to build. And with where we live in right now, and you and I, we've talked about this with social media and the world of digital, and it's so incredible all that we can be exposed to, but oftentimes we're always seeing the end product and that finished product, and we don't always see the journey. And I just think it's so important to point out that 8 years later, because we want everything to happen so quickly and have it happen yesterday. And I know I get into that mindset all the time, but it's just such a nice reminder of, hey, you can take your time, and like your idea and your creation isn't going to go anywhere. Like you can give it life to expand and breathe.
It's that big magic idea that Liz Gilbert talks about, right? Like what you just said, like what is for us will not leave us, and what is for us we will find it. Like this is my idea. Like this is, this idea, like this is what I mean by that is Today I Did It Right had to be born from Betsy and I. There's no one else in the world that could ever create it. And there's no one else in the world that could have ever, it just isn't possible. Like, and I know that on my deepest gut level that like, this is what I will create with my life. Like, I just know it so firmly. And this is Betsy's legacy. This is the legacy of our friendship. This is what I want to share with the world and brings out every strength I have, so it's all of those pieces that come together in who we are, our sense of self. And, a lot of people call it purpose, and its experience is there's no other way this could go. Like there's no other path.
Oh my gosh, it is so, so true. So you mentioned about creating the tools, the journal, the resources for what you and Betsy created and how we can really live a life that is right and true and meaningful to us as the individual. Mm-hmm. Why do you feel that is so important? Or maybe even what is your own personal definition or the Titter definition of doing it right?
Great question. Those are two different pieces, right? So first off, my own definition of right in this exercise of what I think is right is embracing the idea that each of our definitions of right changes. And this is where I would have ended up living the life that was completely wrong for me, is if I would have been obsessed with staying the same or staying in the same idea of myself that I needed to be. You know, we talk a lot about shoulds or things that others expect us to do. I am the worst should'er of all on myself. You know, their external doesn't stand a chance against my internal voice. And I think when we decide to believe that as we change, as our reality changes, like life doesn't stay fixed. And so if we are flexible in allowing ourselves to experience what is happening to us at a given time, that allows us to open up that definition of right. And we don't get fixed and put in boxes. And Betsy and I, you know, for us, like a box doesn't work for me and a box never worked for her. And we talked about that. You know, we were like, what are we without? We would joke about this. We're like, we don't have sports teams and we don't have political parties and we don't have religions. And we don't even have, at this time, we didn't even have our own washing machines in our apartments, right, in Chicago. So it's all of these identity boxes. That's what I mean by that. And why I think it's so important is, for all we know, we get one. And it is, I don't know where this fear got drilled into me, but it is my greatest fear, not anymore because I've like rewritten this, but that I wouldn't live the life I was supposed to live, that I somehow would live this other version of life that looked right to someone else. And I don't know where that came from. I just always from a young age was really fixed on figuring this out in a way that feels right to me. Like, what am I going to do here that feels right to me? And being brave enough to figure out what that looks like instead of doing, well, what is more practical? Or like, what would be easier? What would be, you know, what's more expected? And that's not necessarily like being rebellious and going against the grain. It's just noticing like, oh yeah, this feels really right for me versus this, which I guess would be fine, but I'm not really enthusiastic about it. And so that's why is we get one. And, you know, when I think about Betsy and I talking about creating this individual life plan for ourselves, is why do we subscribe to so many things that someone else tells us to do or says it's normal? And I feel like this awakening for sure in the last few years, I think we're talking about it a lot more, but there's so many ways to live a life. There's just so many ways. And that's why I think it's so essential that we're all individually brave enough to say, this is how I want to live mine, because that's where the fulfillment comes from. You know, a lot of people I talk to, and today I did it right, they want confidence, they want clarity, they want joy, they want purpose, they want fulfillment. Well, you aren't going to ever really find those things if you're not living your life. If you're constantly comparing or living up to some idea that either you or someone else told you to, you're never going to get it. It's impossible.
So true. It's so true. And it can be so difficult though, like such that, you know, uphill battle, because we've really been programmed and conditioned and have even like just soaked in dialogues that maybe don't even belong to us, yet we've identified with them and have created those shoulds and the have tos. And, you know, the water just becomes really murky. And even I've seen it in myself of trying to pull myself out of it and kind of have reached that little like, well, wait, what, like, who am I? What do I identify with? what is right to me? And then even when I pick something, it was like, okay, but is that really me? Like, do I feel that on a physical level, or is that still even something that I've looked at? And I do think we can look at things and grasp inspiration, and we get those little light bulbs that go off and you're like, ooh, that resonates. I need to explore that. And that is right for you. But it's our world is such a murky water. So to have these tools and, resources and guides such as yourself and Betsy to really help direct us and help, clear that water out is just so crucial to me right now.
Murky is a great word to use. And I tell people when they come to workshops or whenever I lead anything is I go, let's just get one thing clear. If you came here for me to tell you what is right for you, you're going to be so disappointed because I have no idea. I have no clue what's right for you.
Love that.
I can give you all of the best tools that have helped me figure out how to live my right life for the last 10, 12 years, right? For sure 10, 12, like the first 2, I was really figuring it out. And I can ask you all of the questions and I can support you and be there for you, but I can't define it for you. And nor do I ever want that position. And I think that was what was so beautiful about the relationship, and that Betsy and I got to experience it together, because we got to have this sounding board of, she was never telling me what was right for me. I was never telling her what was right for her, but we knew how to be these mirrors for each other of asking the right questions. And I think that's what we need to navigate the murkiness, right? Like, because clarity is what everybody wants. They want to be clear. Like, I hear it all the time. I know it for myself. I want to be clear that the choices I'm making right now are actually what's right for me. But that takes practice, and that takes a lot of time to really analyze and assess what is right for you. And if we're just like rattling off, making choices, not thinking about them, saying yes, saying no, not doing anything, and we're not checking back in with, is this actually what I want to do with my life? Like, is this actually how I want to be living? Well, then it's impossible to find clarity. You're just like looking through the cloudy water.
Yeah, it's so true. So with the Today I Did It Right approach, we talked about the 16 rights, but within those, well, I don't want to butcher this. I know then there's the 4 focuses over the 16 rights. I would love to, I'll have you kind of maybe better explain the 4 focuses and then kind of your methodology behind those 16 specific rights, because I love them and I think the intention behind them is just so beautiful.
Yeah, of course. So you got it perfectly, by the way. You didn't butcher anything.
Okay.
So Betsy and I, in those 8 years, right, we're big writers. So this idea of journaling and daily reflection this is second nature to us. We love to write. And so in those 8 years when we would get together, right, we'd go off and live our lives, and then we'd come together, it was at the end, we were together every week, but it used to be like a month or 6 weeks at a time. And we'd come together, we spend 4 to 8 hours. I'm not kidding, like hanging out and talking. And one of us would be the scribe and one of us would be the teller of the story. And so we would just take notes. We filled, I'm not kidding, thousands and thousands of pages. And what we did when we were creating the approach was, okay, so we've got something here. Like, we've got to find, there's a theme in here somewhere. And we read through them all, and we pulled out, what are we talking about over and over and over and over again, right? Through these 8 years, through these experiences, right? We're not the same people we were when we started, but what were we still talking about? And we built this like great, the size of a big poster board, like 24 inches by 24 inches or something. And we had like 60 things on it. We're like, this is too much. We can pare this down. And basically just refining it, like ruthlessly editing what were really the things that matter. And we realized that's what would become the 16 rights, is what those core pieces were. And what we saw in those was these 4 focuses that emerged, is that right days always had to do with something of the self. So the first focus is self. So if we had some experience with ourselves, like our relationship with ourselves, tapped into ourselves, that was always a right day. So that self was a clear focus. The everyday is the second focus because, the journal and the approach isn't called this year I did it right, right? Or this month I did it right, or this decade I did it right. It's today I did it right. And Betsy and I, we just so believe that the secret to everything is to live your days right. And that allows us to do life on a smaller scale than elaborate 5-year plans, right? 10-year goals. Those are important. Like, you should have those. I have those. There's nothing wrong with those. But that's a lot of days. There's a lot of days between today and 5 years from now. And so the beauty of life is in the everyday, and all of the things that I love the most about being alive are things I experience on a daily basis. It's not the big events that we're sold that's what life's all about, right? That's not it. So every day, like, how are we experiencing life on a daily basis? That's the second focus. The third focus is choice. And so this is where we realize that so much rightness comes from when we're making our own choices. And that doesn't mean they're always easy. That doesn't mean that they always feel good. Sometimes they feel amazing. Sometimes it's like your heart's on fire. But choosing is one of the greatest strengths we have. And what we were just talking about, kind of floating through life, or the murkiness, or not being sure. A lot of confusion comes when we don't make choices for ourselves, when we actually just go with the flow. And so choice, every time we exercise choice, that is really having an opinion and having a perspective on your own life. So, which feels so obvious, but it's not taught to be obvious. And then the final focus is connection, because one of Betsy's favorite sayings was, what is life but a series of people we've known and loved? And connection, of course, to yourself. Titter, we talk about it as a practice in self-connection, but connection is really about being connected to your people. And how are you nurturing relationships? Because at the end of the day, that's what I believe. And Betsy believed it was all about. It was about people and, connection to ourselves, connection to our world where we're actually existing, and connection to our people. That really sets you up for a solid framework for living a right life, is that connection. So those are the 4 focuses: self, everyday, choice, and connection.
I love that so much. And I know in the journal somewhere did you add champagne as the 5th one? Or somewhere you threw champagne and bubbles in there? And I was like, I love that you did that.
Well, actually, so that's what Betsy and I called the 5 C's. So
that's what it was.
Yeah. So the 5 C's are really, if today I did it right had values, right? That's what the 5 C's would be. And so the 5 C's, there's some overlap. It's communication, conversation, connection, celebration, and champagne.
That's what it was. I love that so much.
Yeah. So if the approach is actually what the product is, like the journal is built on, the 5 C's are our values. That today I did it right. So all future employees, that's the value system you're buying into.
Must love and drink champagne. Bubbles
Sparkling
are so
water
fun.
works too, but bubbles are the best.
Absolutely. I love that so much. When you started talking at the 4 focuses, I was like, wait, there's champagne in there somewhere, and I can't remember where it is. So fully appreciate that.
And that comes from, being friends with Betsy for over a decade, the art of celebrating everything. And how, if you want more joy in your life, just allow yourself to celebrate everything. And that's another one of the secrets, right? Like, be so enthusiastic about even the smallest things, and that's immediately more joy. And so it always was a call for celebration. It was always a call for bubbles. It was always a toast to, magnificence of some kind. And that's a choice to live that way. It's like abundant living. If I'm celebrating everything, it is just a call to joy all the time.
Celebrations are so important and something that we can overlook so easily too. I mean, it's crucial. Yeah. Even these mornings here in Florida, I mean, all over, especially in the US, a massive winter taking place, but it's been cold down here too. And the last couple of mornings, my husband and I, we've been waking up and we've actually been doing a morning fire, which with the, of the 16 rites with the make more firsts. Yeah. Make more firsts. That was one thing that I thought of, and it's been so nice. We'd make a morning fire and we have our coffee and we do our little morning routine. And I write in my Today I Did It Right journal, and then we read the Daily Stoic together. And it's just been this like beautiful experience, especially because we'll be starting a family soon at some point as well. So those peaceful, cozy mornings might, we can still make them happen as needed in the future. But that has just been such a beautiful way of just like celebrating and really leaning into the winter time and like that coziness of where we are right now.
I'm like screaming because a morning fire seems like that's my definition of rightness for sure. Morning fire and coffee with your significant other and journaling, like that's the dream.
Completely.
Yeah, that fits in about half of the rights in the approach. So check.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of the rights, you mentioned select, refine, eliminate earlier.
Yes.
And that is a big one. I know you've been doing a lot with that. I've been even really looking at that. And you mentioned choice and how hard choices are so important. We have choices, but sometimes making certain choices can be really, really hard. And with select, refine, eliminate, there's, just a lot in there that can be at times difficult, sometimes easy that we don't really think of, like clearing out the photos on your phone, but even that takes time. Let's chat about select, refine, eliminate, and maybe what that has kind of looked like to you as of recently.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite rights. It falls under choice, but only recently has it become a really important one for me. I fall in and out of fashion as I'm practicing my rights. Some of them, it's like I know them like the back of my eyelids. I say them I'm writing on them every other day. But some of them feel like they're more for periods of time, and that doesn't make them less important. It probably makes them more important in some ways or equally important. But I felt, going back to the beginning of the conversation about traveling, right, and this kind of like filling life so much I was just knocked on my ass by COVID in terms of my identity of like who I am. Like I have been Ariel, the traveler, on the go, being everywhere for everything since I was 18 years old. Like I honestly think that there have been maybe 8 months since I was 18 that I probably wasn't on a plane or a train, like before COVID.
Yep.
Like
have you looked at that? Because I looked at that, I think when I hit 7 or 8 months, and I was like, whoa, this is the first time since I was 18. And now it's been a year since I've been on an airplane, and I don't even know what that age would be. I haven't marked it out exactly like that, but I just know. Yeah. I know what I was doing in college, right? I know when I was flying home to Florida, and I know when I was taking the train to Michigan to see my family all the time. And then after, I was traveling all the time, like being somewhere else. It definitely fueled part of me, but it became who I was. And it's not who I am. It's what I did. And it got really confusing for me. So I really had to navigate that, which was really hard during COVID. Like, who am I? What have I done? Wait, moving abroad was my greatest life choice, and now I can't go anywhere? Like, have I made every mistake? Right? Like, what am I doing? Because I love my friends and family so much. Well, now I'm completely isolated. I can't see anyone. So that was a lot to grapple with,
for the whole year. And thankfully, in the Today I Did It Right community, there were a couple other women who were dealing with the exact same thing. So I was able to talk about it a lot. And I just was really honest with it. I was like, I'm very confused. This is like a part of me I don't really understand. So I had to navigate that. So at the end of last year, I was very fortunate. I was able to come back to the States in August and September and see my family, which was so important, and to see Betsy. But last November, I was in the lull. Like I was in the lowest valley of COVID, just really confused of what does the future look like? What am I planning for, and there was even moving to Europe, moving abroad was something I dreamed about for so long and worked on for so long and had to navigate so many things, getting my residency, getting set up with the tax office, even before that, my husband getting into his program, getting rid of all of our stuff, moving here. There was always something to plan, right? There's always something to do. And then it just was like, I have nothing. I have nothing to plan. I have nothing to do. It's just me and my job and Titter, and that's it, which is plenty, right? More than enough, but wasn't enough for me, because I'd filled so much for so long. And so at the end of last year, I really hit this low place. And so I decided I needed clarity. That's what I needed. I needed to create space to really process this. And I was like, I need to select, refine, eliminate. This is what I need to do. So I took the week off between Christmas and New Year's. I've never done that before. I've always worked those couple of days. And I gave myself permission to have 10 days at home. It was magical. I've never done anything like that, right? Whenever I have vacation time, I'm always going somewhere and doing something. And I made this whole list of everything I wanted to at least think about during this time, right? I just really wanted to kind of start creating space here. And so that, select, refine, eliminate. Like what do I need to refine? What do I need to eliminate? And that was everything from journaling and writing on these identity questions and doing a lot of burn writing and letting things go, right? Elimination, to touching everything I own, basically. I've moved across the country. I've done that once. I've moved across the world. I don't have rooms and rooms and rooms of stuff, right? I know what my things are, but it's so important for me to be very energetically tapped into everything I own, because it just is very important for me. So I needed to go through that. I needed to, I tried everything on in my closet. I gave life back into it after feeling so stagnant and just sitting here, wearing the same thing every day, sitting in the same room every day. I went through my phone and cleaned up photographs. I did these projects. I call it the silent to-do list, right? The things in your head that even if you feel so present, you're like, oh, I need to do that thing. And they're usually really small, stupid things. One of mine was getting this lampshade for this lamp I had found, but I thought about it every day, every single day. I need to find a lampshade. So I found the lampshade, so that was a selection piece, and it just quieted everything down, inside. And so that entire, I went through every bank statement and every single subscription I was on. I was like, do I need this? Do I not? Right? That felt so good. I analyzed, where's my money going? Where's it coming from? How do I want to feel about it? And that process, just that clarity that came out of it, just slowing down for, 10 days, right? Not a weekend, right? You can't slow down for that. And I just gave myself permission to really pull myself out of that place. And, some of the elimination was the expectations I have of what comes next, right? What are we doing next? Where are we going? Where are we going to be? And I needed to do that because I was torturing myself of agonizing over what am I going to plan? So that was really the root of it. It was far more than I have too many clothes and I need to clean out my closet. I've done that. And that was the refined piece. This was really, that last year threw me upside down. I was really emotionally and energetically feeling it. How can I give myself some space to kind of touch every part of my life, kind of, I wrote a lot about like, who are the friendships that really matter to me, right? Like not eliminating anyone, but who am I choosing? Who am I selecting to really give more energy to? And who can I not, right? Where am I not getting the energy I need? And so that process, I'm building something around to share with the community of like how you can do it for yourself. But it absolutely set me up. I needed it so badly. And just even that time to just communicate with myself.
So powerful. So, so powerful. And especially because, I mean, like, it's not easy. It's so interesting because taking that approach and electing to do that and making those choices is a form of self-care because you're doing it for you. You care about yourself, but oftentimes self-care can look like, oh, get a massage or take a bath, which are very important. I tell everyone, I'm like, just take a bath. That's all you need. But at the same time, it's not always just, maybe sitting in stillness, because you can't enjoy the stillness when there's so much going on up top. And how do you really clear space so that you can get back to enjoying your life again? So I love that you did that. It's very inspiring. I feel like I've tiptoed in that in very different areas, but have been just feeling really empowered from watching your journey to really go all in, because you can truly see how beneficial it is to somebody.
Yeah. And I'm the biggest advocate for baths. Like if baths could have a sponsor, like a titter would be there. But I agree. There's sometimes self-care is, and it's hard. And I think the thing I left out was my social media evaluation during this time, which I was like, wait, there's something else that's contributed to this clarity. Last year, I really struggle. The only social media platform I'm on is Instagram. And I love it in so many ways. I've met the most amazing people. I mean, we were connected through M, but also, through Instagram. I have met the best people through that. And it's so powerful. But I am not above the powers of that platform that wrote me in and make me live my wrong life. And so how many times did I have to journal on the fact that, wow, I spent 2 hours today on Instagram, and being so honest with myself. Like, is that my right life that I'm spending 2 hours? And I'm not creating anything, mind you, because if you're really doing a long, beautiful story, that shit takes a long time. So that's so different, right? That's so different. But what am I doing? And is this my right life? And it's not. Like, it isn't. So this is designed to make me be addicted to this. Like, this is not my fault. This is exactly what it's designed to do. And I did these 2 programs last year called The Pause, where I, took a week off and felt amazing, but then I fell right back in. And so I just had this moment that I was like, I'm just unfollowing everyone. I'm not above this. I can't. And as a creator, I was getting so like murky water. Like we talk about is, do I sound okay? Like they're so good. Like, am I good enough? Like, what am I saying? And when you're creating, I can't consume. I can't do it. Like it really messes with my creative flow. And so, over those 10 days, I unfollowed everyone other than my 2 Swedish antique dealers who sell amazing things on Instagram. And then I'm like, no, please let me buy it. So those are the only 2 people that made the first cut, 1 Swedish, 1 Danish. But other than that, and holy shit, Britt, like this is, if you want clarity, this is it. Like the physical difference in myself is crazy. I've had 2 days where I've like gone on like a scrolling, like I've looked things up and I can pinpoint. I'm like, well, now I feel like shit and I know why. So you feel it like physically. My ideas feel like my ideas, right? Like I'm clearer on what I'm saying for Titter and I'm not abandoning it by any means. And I'm slowly starting to follow people again that I remember, because I was following like 600 accounts. A third of them, I didn't even know who they were. I was like, who, what? Has someone gone into my Instagram account and followed these people? Because I don't even know who these people are. then the second thing I realized are the people that I really care about, I'm never seeing because of, the algorithm. It's all bigger than us, right? We don't own this platform. Not like the good old days. It used to be so good, but I don't even see the people I care about because I'm still following all these things that I don't care about and these products. And so, so I just really, this platform, which I've been using since the beginning. I mean, years, 6 years we've been using it, 7
at least. Yeah.
20. Yeah. Yeah. I think 2012 is when I first got it.
Yeah, I agree.
So I just had to change all that up.
Almost 10 years.
Oh my, so scary. But we've come a long way from everybody using those crazy filters at the beginning, which was so good, which I found some of the old photos when I was going through the cloud. I'm like, oh God, I want Instagram to be this again.
Right.
But yeah, that was a huge piece. It's like, if I'm going to be clear on what I'm doing right every day, like, this is not it. And be honest with yourself, Ariel, because you're wasting a lot of time and a lot of emotional energy here.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And then on the flip side, same side of that coin is then I was feeling that, wanting to do it, couldn't take action on it because I was like, well, I can't just not post, even though I wasn't posting authentically. I mean, it was fine, but it wasn't truly from my heart. It was more of like, oh, what do people want to see? What should I be doing? Then, got trapped in that consumer mentality and I wasn't being my full creative self. And then suddenly got kicked off of Instagram for one account, got locked up, then my other one, then my personal I couldn't even get into. So talk about the fact that this platform more or less controls our lives, yet we're literally not in control of it. Well, what was beautiful in that was, again, the universe kind of gave me what I needed out of it. So I'm grateful for it. However, at the same time, my personal Instagram, I finally just logged back into that one, like I think last week maybe, and it was like, oh, let's just see, God forbid people are messaging me. Hopefully they'd contact me somewhere else if it was important, but you never know. It's still a mode of communication. And then caught myself back on there for like 2 days doing that scrolling again. And it, like you said, that physicalness. And I was like, ooh, this is not okay. So I was like, I'm just going to log back out of it. And I haven't gone back since. And it just, you feel so clear without it. And it is such a fun tool, like you said, with the connection, but you have to give yourself boundaries with it. And it's so difficult. Like for someone who's like, oh, I had to literally delete the app. Like, I feel you, completely get it. You can feel powerless to it. And that's what is just eye-opening when you look at it. So.
Yeah, and I think the baby steps weren't working for me. I had to do something really drastic to be able to have that new perspective shift. Like the quitting for a week, like I wasn't like itching to get on. I was like, okay, it's off. I'm fine. But the way I was using the tool was not working for me. And I've had these funny conversations because so many people DM me and they're like, I want to do this, or like, this is so amazing. Like, this is what we need to be talking about. And they're like, I feel really guilty. My family's going to be really upset if I don't follow them. I'm like, why? Like, why? Yeah. So then we got to rewrite that. Why is now this so I have to follow every single thing that you do and see everything you do. And I'm reminded, I didn't have a Facebook in high school, my college Facebook right after college. And it was because I was having dinner with a friend and he had this great story. Oh my God, he had this crazy story about something, I can't remember it now, but something that had happened to him on the train in Chicago. And it was like supposed to be the best story. But I saw his update about it on Facebook and he came, we were all hanging out and he goes to tell a story. I go, I already know this story. And I knew immediately, I'm like, I hate this because I've already read the story and now you're telling it. And I've just robbed myself of how amazing this experience would be. And I knew it. And they shut it down and never thought about it again. Instagram's not quite the same because of like the organic connections that I am making. But when I see you, I want to hear about what you're doing. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, I saw that. And then the conversation stops. Betsy always called it like Betsy, whenever there were moments like that. She'd call it conversation killers. And that's like one of the things we believe in most. If I say to you, oh yeah, I saw that, your natural inclination isn't to go into more detail. You're like, oh, okay. It's not to go into the detail of what you've experienced or what's the reality. It's just to go, oh yeah, I saw that. And there's so much more. Yes, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but words are also worth 1,000 words. And, when a picture gets wrong is it shows one side of it. It shows just what's in the frame. Mm-hmm. Whereas a story tells the entire setting and what's behind the camera.
I could have this conversation all day with you. So much more I want to unpack there. But
100%.
You mentioned storytelling. And one thing I do want to touch on is we've kind of like touched on it throughout, but the power of writing and journaling and really that why behind the practice and putting that pen to paper and really why a journal, why the today I did it right journal.
Yeah. So it's a tool in your toolbox is what I view journaling as. And I have an overflowing toolbox, right, of how I process the world. That includes an amazing therapist who I love him so much. I almost included him in my speech at my wedding. Like he has changed my life. Incredible books, right, by thought leaders and teachers. Physical movement, right? Everything. I've trained for a half Ironman. I've done, intense HIIT classes. I'm like a devout Tracy Anderson mover, right? Like that connection to body is one of my tools. I love yoga. That's a tool. Tarot and kind of like this exploring more spiritual things I'm very new to, but I love those tools and trying those on. Journaling is the best tool I have for connecting with myself, right? So other people, any of those other tools might be what's best for them. Journaling is what is and what has always been my way of processing the world. And if you go to my mom's house and you look under the bed, there are dozens of journals from a really early age. I just love, they're more like a diary. They're so embarrassing. But you're processing the world, right? Like I read them and I'm like, oh, I'm a frustrated 7-year-old who's mad because she didn't get her way. So she's like calling her brother and her mom a jerk, right? Like you don't know that at the time, but I built that relationship with pen and paper really young of figuring life out, like what was going on. And I turned to writing and I had amazing teachers. Like my first, second, and third grade teachers, Miss Leonard, Mrs. Brandeis, and Mrs. Hood were all such amazing advocates for writing. And I was so fortunate that way that, I loved writing as a kid. Like that was my subject. And so for me, journaling has always been that. And then it evolved into when I was in middle school and high school, writing a lot of songs, right? So, like I mentioned, I love to sing and that's something I do for myself. And song lyrics, right? Like that's journaling. I was such a pen pal person. We had AIM, we had like instant messenger, but my letters to my older cousins in college, and that's journaling, that's writing, so it's always been my preferred mode of communication. And then when I met Betsy, it happened to be hers. And so we both had this tool that we used to process our thoughts. And, we always said you're never alone with a journal. And if I think of my favorite places, right? So PPT, people, places, things is one of the rights under choice. Like what are the people, places, and things you choose? I bet in 9 out of 10 fantasies that Betsy and I have, an afternoon alone with our journal is like the best company you could ever have. And so that's why journaling. And it makes me sad that so many people think they're not writers. They hate writing. They have a total hangover from school. Someone told them they weren't a good writer. Shame on those people, because we're all writers. We all have something to say. And I think when we write something down, we can be really honest, right? Like no one's going to read it. Like we're not all writing the next best great American novel. You're just processing your own thoughts. And I think there's no tool as powerful as putting your hand to paper, holding the device and creating the letters, right? Like that's what, people are like, can you type it out? I'm like, well, do you remember what you typed the same way that you remember what you wrote? No. Okay. Then it's not the same, and there's a ton of science behind this. I got to get my stats on it. I'm not, there's lots of people that have done research on this, lots of teachers about the importance of writing things down, but it's that connection to it. And so that's why a journal and helping people build that habit, because our lives are so fleeting. Not so much in COVID, right? That's, I feel like, because we're all sitting very still. But the good things that happen and the right things, naturally, we brush by them and we fixate on the wrong things or the negative things. Like that is natural. That's like the human state. But if we can write down what is right, if we can write down what we're experiencing that is right for us, then we pay more attention to it. And then you have the best chance of recreating it. So that's the habit loop I've trained myself on, right? And that's what I'm trying to help other people see. Like I haven't had a day without rightness since I started this. I have not had a single day of my life where I have not been able to find one right thing. And that does not mean that it has been easy. Like it has been incredibly challenging and that, in this period, but every single day I've been able to find one right thing. And that's because my right muscle is like the strongest muscle I have. And the only reason I have that is because I have pages and pages and pages filled with what those things are.
Wow. And you put the work in. And I think that's, we all want that little magic pill and it takes time. It takes so much time, but it's so worth it.
There's no magic pill. There's none. And that's what's so frustrating, right? Is we get sold the idea that there is, and there's not. There is not. The only, Emily Moyer, who you've had on here before, I think she said, patience is the shortcut, or so she has some great quote about this. There is no shortcut, right? Like there is no such thing. So I think it is patience is the shortcut, but you got to put the work in over and over again, every single day. That's it.
And if you think about it, we really have so much more time than we know what to do with. Like life could actually be kind of boring if we weren't always doing the work. Like we came here as humans for a very specific reason with these emotional bodies, these minds, all this stuff. I mean, right now where we sit in this world of technology. So it's like, embrace it, dive in, get yourself dirty. And life could be so boring if there was that magic pill. And there's never going to be. I don't think there's ever supposed to be. So,
it's never the destination. It's always the journey. But somehow we think it's the other way around.
So true.
I don't know about you, but every time I've reached someplace, I'm like, someplace, right? Some place or some destination that I think I'm supposed to be that then, into there, I call them the and thens, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's the definition. It's like, I'll get the job and then, or I'll find the partner and then, or I'll make the money and then, or I'll have the thing and then. And you get the thing and it's never what you imagined. Oftentimes it's better or completely different or worse. It doesn't matter what it is, but the destination is never the point. And that's, I think, realizing that, which I'm still learning all the time, right? And I can get caught up in it. I can get fixated on my and thens. I'm practicing too. But it's never the destination. It's always the journey.
I think you and Em actually talked about this at a workshop that you did about, because I really connected with it because I realized that I was doing this with my clients without, I think, fully being aware of what I was doing, but selecting intentions and not goals. And to that point of it's the journey, it's not the destination. It's about what is the intention behind your actions? Why are you doing this? More so than what is going to happen at that end point, because what happens next? Life doesn't just like poof, there's always something to come after. So
there will always be a next. And thank God for that, right? Because if there wasn't, then that means we're done. So that's it. There's always a next.
Yeah. I also love the realness of your story and just everything that you've shared, but in yourself and your practice, because you mentioned earlier in looking at your life with select, refine, eliminate, and you were like, holy crap, like came to your community. Who else in here is struggling with this? Who can I, become one with? And it's such a trueness of just how we are all one. And while, yes, you are with Betsy, the creator and the guide, there's just so much humbleness in that vulnerability of we're never going to have it all figured out. And we're all always a student. And I just so admire that aspect about you because it's so, so important. But for anyone who is interested in connecting with you or joining your community, I would love to learn just a little bit about, number one, where can people find you? But then what's going on in your community and how can people get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place to find us is on our website, todayididit.com, and an email. So that is my preferred method. Instagram's great. I'm on Instagram at todayididit. I will be there, but I'm really even trying, when people DM me, I'm like, can you email me so we can like really talk about this? Because the DM, like this gets lost and then there's a bunch of like hearts in here, and then you get buried and then I can't find you. So emailing, which you can sign up online and then you'll get access. But one, my silver lining of COVID is Today I Did It Right changed the business, like actually what we're building and creating. And I was so fixed on this old story that the reason Today I Did It Right wasn't thriving was because I wasn't in Chicago and that's where my community was. And if only I was in Chicago, then I'd be hosting all these events and all these people would be finding about Titter and we'd just be further along, right? Same old shit, right? Same old story, the and then. And I actually, right before COVID, it was like 2 weeks before, my mom had sent me this copy of Darling magazine, which was all about purpose. And it had all of these amazing journaling prompts in it. So I was going to my favorite coffee shop every morning and working on one of the prompts. And it asked like, what was like the first job you had as a kid, right? Like not a real job, but like, what was your first thing you did? And when I was in a second, third grade split class and I started the Winnie the Pooh and Piglet Club with my friends, there are 3 third graders and 3 second graders. And I created this whole newsletter and like I put together this whole like event that we were doing. And I had this really vivid memory about the Pooh Bear and Piglet Club. And like everybody had a character and like people were so bizarre. That's who I was as a kid. And I was like, wait, this is what I'm really good at. Like I'm really good at like creating space for people. And that's the kind of, that's the kind of leader I am. And I have been since I was a kid, whether it was in student government or at jobs or in friend groups, is creating space for people to come together to feel good, right? Like that host, but like a very calm host, not like the anxious host of like, oh God, you're in the house and like the kitchen's getting messed up, right? It's just that holding that space and talking and writing. Like those are my favorite things. So then when we all went into lockdown, I just put this thing up. I was like, if anyone wants to get on a Zoom call and journal about this, let me know. And that started Morning Rightness. And that original group of women are still writing. They show up 2 days a week for 30 minutes, anywhere between 4 and 15 of them. And we've been writing together now almost a year. And that is just, I could cry. Like, I mean, I will. Like, these women, they just showed me how much how much Today I Did It Right has to offer to the world, more than Betsy and I ever knew. And that's what launched the whole community. And then they'd come off the call. They're like, how do we stay in touch? Half of us, and it's multi-generational, right? It was mid-20s to mid-70s. So it's like half of us don't have social media. Like, what are we going to all get on? Like a group text? How do we all keep talking? So we built the Share. So the Share is the community, because whenever we write and whenever I host workshops, we journal independently and then we come together and we share. And so that's always the component where we exchange the energy between what we've written. And that's what Betsy and I always did. We were sharing. we would write and live independently, and then we'd come together and share. And so that community is launching. I've been that's so exciting. I have this core group of women who've really helped me test this the last 4 months now, which is crazy, to really make sure that we have a safe place, a great place for people to come together and practice doing it right. I've launched monthly writing programs to help people start journaling. And it's not, it's really about how are you defining it for yourself. So we have, you start journaling, you start learning the approach, because it's a lot. 16 things is a lot. It's overwhelming. And that's where I'll be the first to admit, as a business owner, we messed up. We're like, here you go. Here's a journal. Like, just use it. And people are like, what do I do with this? We learned. And so that's the share community. Like I said, it will be open to anyone that has done one of our 30-day journaling intro to titter classes. And if you can start 30 days of doing it right at any time, it's on our website. You can sign up. It's a beautiful 30-day experience. You get 3 live workshops included, intention setting, new moon, and then just a check-in. And the community is amazing. Like, it's just women from around the world. I think we're 5 countries now. I don't know, like 12 states. And I just laugh because this time last year, I could go look at my journal and be like, if only we were in Chicago, if only I was in Chicago, this would all be fine. And it's so funny because never moving forward will this group ever be in person, because we all are from all over the world. We can't ever be in the same place anyway. And so that's what we've created. And it just is, it's growing. It's amazing to see the aha moments. We have mothers and daughters in it together, which is just incredible. More and more women of different ages, right? So again, like, it's 20s to 70s now, and watching those connections. And that's what Betsy and I always wanted to do. We wanted to bring together multi-generational women, and we're doing it. So if that is what you're looking for in this community, talking about the questions about Instagram and social media, we all laugh. We're like, wait, this is what we want this is social media, right? Like, this is how we, we found our replacement. So that's how I really think about it.
And in finding that replacement, again, like, you don't have to do what everyone else is telling you. Social media is a great thing, but you created your own social media that's more meaningful and makes more sense for that group and that community, which I just, isn't it so, it's just so crazy. It gives me goosebumps just looking back at like where we've been, where we've came from, even just where we were last year. And, yourself, if I was in Chicago, like, all these things would be taking place. And then now you're reaching women all around the world. It's kind of just really the duality of everything, of where we are with technology and life.
It's amazing. These tools are amazing. Very lucky to be able to have them to bring us together.
Yes. Well, we are so lucky as well to have you and your inspiration and guidance. Thank you so much for jumping on here today. But before we close out our episode, which honestly, I could talk with you all afternoon. I love these soulful connections. I feel like I've become soul sisters with all my guests. It's so fun. But I love to close out with some loving your own soul questions, which are just some kind of intuitive on the spot questions that I come up with before our episode. And one of them, which I didn't realize that you enjoyed music so much. So this is, again, just how connected we all are. But first question, do you prefer to sing in the shower or in your car?
Ooh.
Or on stage, actually. I'll throw an on stage in there for you.
No, I would definitely say car. I would say car.
Cool. Love that. What is your favorite way to slow down or maybe wind down?
Bath, for sure. Bath and a book, reading in the bathtub.
Yes, absolutely. Do you know your human design type?
Yes, I am a manifester.
Okay, cool. When you were talking earlier, I was like, ooh, I really wonder what you are. That's cool. My husband's a manifester as well.
Yeah.
Love
what
that.
Are you?
I'm a generator.
Okay. Yeah, I love human design.
Tried and true. Yeah, it's so cool. Again, another great tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. another fantastic tool.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I like that I'm like thinking of you being a manifestor now. You're definitely, as a manifestor, I know it can be very hard to step in our society and kind of live out that manifestor, but I definitely feel that you're embodying your human design type, which is really cool. So
thanks.
Yeah. Are you a breakfast, lunch, snack, or dinner person?
Lunch would be my favorite.
Yeah. Anything in particular?
Just like the best salad, right? Like that's right at home. One of my friend's moms, she is an amazing cook, and I always call it the Krista salad that I recreate. And it's like cold green beans and tomatoes and fresh herbs and a great, white champagne vinaigrette and like just a great salad, preferably on an outdoor patio with a girlfriend, a long late lunch, glass of white wine, like you're sitting there for 3 hours, and then like a cappuccino at the end.
I think we could all go for that right now.
Yes.
Do you prefer to plan someone else's birthday or celebrate your own birthday?
Great question. My honest answer is celebrate my own, but I'm doing it by myself. So my birthday is my favorite holiday, but I love doing what I want to do on my birthday, and I love having alone time on my birthday. I've been writing letters to myself on my birthday since I was 24. So I have every year I write a new letter to myself and I read the old ones, and it's my favorite little ritual I have. And I always get French fries and white wine, and I try to be, not now, but when I was back, if I can be, I want to be like laying in a bathing suit somewhere, like even if it's in my backyard, right? Yep. Just have some sun. And yeah, I would prefer other people not celebrating me, but I want to celebrate myself.
Cool. Oh my gosh. What a fun answer. I absolutely love that. When's your birthday, by the way?
September 18th.
Oh, cool. I think I know. Yeah, that date feels familiar, but I don't know why. So, final question that I ask all of my guests. When did your exploration to diving deeper into your own soul first begin, and how has it evolved since then?
I have a really clear answer. It was 2014, June of 2014, and my mom was visiting me in Chicago, and we were sitting at a pizza place, it was the best pizza place. It was like this crisp bread pizza place. It's closed now. It's a weird kind of laundrette now. And I told her, I said, I think I'm ready to go to therapy, start digging into some stuff. And she's like, I definitely support you in doing that. So that hands down changed everything for me. So I was 25. And how has it changed since? I think the biggest way it's changed since is realizing that the answers come from within me. They don't come from outside me.
So true. And something that you can't understand until you live it and go through it.
Yeah. I can close with one of what Betsy always told me. And I couldn't understand it until I understood it. And especially I think for a lot of young women, I can only speak for myself, but when you're late teens and in your early 20s, you have, I was a big people pleaser. Like I said, I was a really good student. Wanted to fix things for people and gave a lot of my own power away a lot of the time and put my, that absence of choice. And Betsy would always say, she's like, you got to stop giving your power away. And I was like, I don't know what that means, Betsy. But now I understand. I understand what that means now, but that took a long time to figure out.
Dude, so much time to figure out. I'm working now on, okay, I've given so much of my power away. What do I need to now bring it back? How can I refill all that I've given away with good intention, being the people pleaser, but lack of intention for the self.
Yeah. Totally. I'm figuring it out too. I think maybe we'll have to undo it forever, but we are on the journey.
Well, Ariel, thank you so much for jumping on here. This was so much fun exploring your own journey and just understanding really how to do it right. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Britt.
Woohoo! What a fun conversation. I hope you all enjoyed getting to know Ariel a little bit deeper. Highly recommend connecting with her further, checking out the Today I Did It Right approach for yourself, and really just start leaning into what a right life looks like for you. There's truly no wrong way to do it as long as you're doing it for you. So thank you again to Ariel for sharing space with us here. This was just such a special space to be held, as it always is. And as well, do be sure to enter to win one of my moon cycle oracle readings for the month of March by subscribing, rating, and reviewing the podcast. Plus, you get a bonus entry if you also share your favorite episode with us on Instagram or Facebook. Be sure to screenshot your proof and send it to me as your entry on Instagram at lovingyourownsoul or email lovingyourownsoul@gmail.com. Thank you again for tuning in and being a part of this community. I look forward to continuing the journey with you again soon.